Welcome to Dog Moms Do Business,
A podcast where two lifelong friends find sisterhood in business, life, and being crazy millennial dog moms.
We're your hosts, Ellen Broen
And Jasmine Jonte.
and today's episode is all about...
Perfectionism.
Are you ready? Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh man, this topic is close to home. You've known me a long time. How would you say my perfectionist journey has been from the outside?
It has improved. It is much improved. Growing up, you were a perfectionist in all ways, always.
Mm-hmm.
It was everywhere. It was almost like, Tony Robbins has this idea of like a primary question, and that, the brain is always asking and answering questions, and we all have one question that we ask more than all other questions. Mm-hmm. And if I had to venture a guess, yours would have been, am I doing this right?
I was literally thinking, what is the right way?
Yeah.
Which is the same thing.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So now I still think you asked that question a bit, but I'd say it's more like, am I doing this right for me?
Exactly.
Which is a spin that I feel a lot of people could just making that one shift, just changing that one question
Totally.
would change so much about your life.
A lot of like perfectionists, in terms of my own experience and then working with a lot of clients who are perfectionists, I feel like that shift of like taking it from right, wrong and into alignment, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like making something right for you versus what is right according to some other standard.
Yes.
It feels simple and logical and like, yeah, and like for someone who's not a perfectionist, but for a perfectionist, it is like a paradigm shift to the core.
Yes.
Because I think inside of perfectionism, there's a lot of like, to me, this is the building block of a survival mechanism where it's like you're finding safety and control through things that you can find safety and control, at least a sense of control through, and a sense of safety through, even though it's not actually providing you any controllers, like nothing's in our control, and
Totally.
like safety is a construct, like all of it's a construct. But as children, when we're developing our sense of the world, if you grow up in a chaotic, like you have a chaotic childhood or a traumatic childhood or whatever, a lot of perfectionists end up being born through those experiences because they seek to control and find some little slice of their world that they can make it the right way, or like they can have something make sense. And I think that's very true for my like childhood experience. And it took me, and I think inside of that is some people pleasing as well. Like people pleasing and perfectionism go hand in hand a lot of times because again, you're meeting someone else's standards and expectations. And it takes some intentional work to break those constructs up. Like there are some, clients I've had who are in their 40s and 50s who are just like, oh, like I've been living it. I've been doing it wrong this whole time, right? Like they
I'm a perfectionist who's trying to do it right. And I've just been doing it all wrong.
Yeah. So like it takes a lot to, instead of fix that mindset, it's not about like saying you're wrong for thinking this way, because that's still within the same loop-de-loop.
Exactly.
It's doing the exact same thing on top of it, being like, you're wrong for being a perfectionist. That's just more of the same. Instead, I love that you put it from the beginning of just like, it's not about being right. It's about what's right for you, which I think fits with what I think there's like a big buzzword around alignment, just like finding what aligns. But that's what I mean by that. When you find something that's right for you and what vision of success is right for you and what like your lifestyle looks like for you and all that kind of stuff. Like I think right before this podcast, you and I were talking about how much I've been reading recently, and you're like, you got too much time on your hands. And I am a projector, and like rest is a really huge and crucial part for my life. And For you, the man gen, you're like, I would go crazy if I had that much time, and I wouldn't even know what to do with that.
Just sit with books
and rest
for like weeks.
Yeah. So again, like I was just thinking, like, the achiever in me, like the old frame of mind that I had probably 20 years ago, would look at my lifestyle now and be like, what is that? And that's awesome, but what is that? Like, is that allowed? Like, can you be successful and live like and read a book intensively for a couple of weeks like that? Is that even like, are you adulting? Is that a real thing? And is that allowed? Is that right? Am I doing enough? Like that's another question that kind of goes with perfectionism.
Yeah.
But I know you were thinking about like talking about different areas of perfectionism. So lay it out. Like, I feel like, you said I was a perfectionist in all areas. And now I would say I strive for excellence, right? Like that's kind of the new framework my brain goes into in certain areas where, like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it with excellence in specific areas of my life. And then there are other areas where I have let that go, where I'm like, excellence is just being here in the moment and being grateful, like this moment is excellent and I declare it so, and I don't have to be doing something in order to achieve excellence. But there are other things that are still like, I need to do it a certain way in order for me to be pleased with the result in my life. So I don't know, what do you think are the different areas that you see perfectionism show up in and how it goes?
I see it most often show up in work for people.
Yeah.
Because that's connected to the achiever. Sure. That's connected to the people pleasing. That's connected to my worth is my work. My productivity is my worth. Like how much productivity creates the work, which creates the worth. Like all of that is just one big ball of
tangled mess.
And so I think that I'll speak to our listener who's likely someone in business, right? Which is, I think, the same question is not, am I doing this right? But am I doing this right for me? Especially if you're running a business and you think about something like marketing and you see a competitor who's got multiple client acquisition channels and a bigger team and, potentially a lot more revenue than you. And it's easy to look at all those things and say, that's right. When it actually might not be right for you. And let's say you want to achieve those same levels of success. Cool. Their way might not be your right way. I see it all the time.
Right.
See it all the time. So I feel like that's the biggest and baddest one is at work.
That resonates even just like, in the scaling process, like that scaling, quote unquote, is the right way to approach building a business. Changing, not having an exchange of time for money, and like finding something that can step you out of the delivery role and into the CEO role. And like some people, that is just not what they want. Some people genuinely just want to be the what is the word for it? Then when you're like the
service provider?
Yeah, like the service provider rather than the, the manager of the service.
And some people say that starting a business is the best way to get into business. Well, guess what? You can go buy a business.
That's true.
And then you're not like, it's just like you're saying, like some people really like are not meant for scale. They're just people who are meant to grow. And I feel like there are definitely people who are not meant to start from things from zero. They're meant to scale something else.
Yeah.
And just like there's some people, and I actually thought that this was me for a long time. I thought that I was better as number 2 than a number 1. That I was better to be the support person behind the head honcho. And I did that work for a long time and came to the understanding that that's not actually right for me. But I think there's a lot of people out there who would be better served as a number 2 without having all of the stress and pressure that comes with being the CEO, the person who, in a company where there's really only you in the C-suite, rather than a whole office of partners. So I think that there's just all these different ways to do things, and it's so easy to be influenced by what we see out there most publicly, which then we prescribe as right.
Right. Another thing I feel like is a common thread to pull for perfectionists is this idea of like analysis paralysis and being unable to start something until they have fully researched and have everything perfect before they start the project. And then they get into the project and realize like 90% of the preparation was not required. Yeah. So in that sense, it's number one, delaying starting, right? Like we delay starting and we push things off until we feel 110% ready. When I have like taken on a personal mantra where I need to be 51% ready for something. If I feel 51% ready, then I'm ready. And that's all that's required. And so.
Well, that's interesting because your human design is splenic, but I don't know what the number is for that. But I know that when I'm working with my clients who have emotional authority, they will never feel more than 80%. Like it's literally not in their design to ever feel more than 80%. And they're literally always asking for 100%. And so it's like, I do a lot of this like reframing perfectionism with my clients. And I can't tell you how many times I say, it all works. It will all work. It's what's going to work the best for you. That's a question you need to answer, you know? But I don't know what the splenic number is, but if you're an emotional authority, if you feel 80%, right? Like good about something, that's your 100%, go for it.
Yeah. That's really good. And then the other thing is, the analysis paralysis and us trying to be perfect to get started is one thing. And then it's like the implementation of, I guess it's like priorities, like knowing what's the highest priority versus not the highest priority. In my perfectionist mind, like if I'm like really activated in that space, everything is of equal importance.
Yep.
Like down to like, if we're talking about your course, everything from the flow of the course and like how the lessons go into each other to the font, like everything is as important as everything.
Those clients are real fun, let me tell you. They're the most fun.
I have been super like activated in those kinds of projects where it's like, my website building. Yeah. My website building was super triggering to my perfectionism because number one, it was a huge investment and like I wanted it to be perfect. Like I wanted to fully embody all of my vision. And also like the resistance to being in process, I think, is part of this perfectionist struggle, is like for it to be messy in the middle before it's right. My personal experience of that is like I'm a really good messy middle and finisher, but the starting is like I don't want to start it until like
I'm the
I know.
opposite.
And you and Matt are both
finisher.
Good at starting, and you're okay with the messy middle, but the finishing takes a lot of effort.
Oh my gosh, that's why I hire people for that shit.
Yeah, so you start things, and then you got someone finish
start it, and then it's like I gave you all the ideas, all the raw goods are there.
Whereas I'll like rack up a list of 1,000 things and not start any of them because I have to decide which one's perfect and what's the right one to go with. Which, to be super transparent, like that's kind of been my like tripping thing. Like I'm tripping over this a bit with my own content creation lately, where like I'm just overwhelmed by the number of ideas that I have and I don't know where to start, and I'm just too like.
Show me the list, I'll tell you.
Okay. Will do.
This is why you need people, though. It's because it's like, we can't be good at everything.
We need like, somebody to interrupt the shit.
And I'm having a breakthrough too now because I'm thinking about this dang wedding. And I'm like, why am I so exhausted?
Oh.
It's because it's all the finishing shit. It's like the getting the sign for Wi-Fi and printing it at Staples and then ordering the freaking frame on Amazon. And then putting it in the, oh my word, I am exhausted. Yeah. Whereas you'd be great at that.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, all these little details given me. Yeah. And I think, one thing that I have learned by being in a relationship with Matt is like he learns best by just jumping in the deep end and learning how to swim.
If Grace is any example.
Lord help us all. Lord help us all. We have a pool. We're going to like mark it off with every kind of fence you can because Lord knows that girl's just going to jump in and figure it out. But, it has been to our benefit to have these equal and opposite ways because I have learned the benefit of being 51% ready and just jumping in, like you don't want to jump into a pool if you don't know how to swim. But if you kind of know how to swim and you can survive, then jump in the freaking pool and live, you know, like do your thing. And that's like something that I learned in the process of experimenting with different things, like trying on these different ways of being and seeing what happens, is like, I would say how I approached my Powerhouse program the first time I launched it, where I was like, I'm just jumping, like I have the vision, I have what I think I basically need, and I filled it, so we're going.
You popped in there real fast.
It was too fast, right?
It was almost too fast.
It felt like the thing that I learned in that process was like there's a difference between challenging our comfort zones, right? Like and like moving through resistance. That's just like that inner pushback of like, ooh, like I'm not ready yet, you know.
And then the fucking overwhelm zone of that was too much, and I went too
right.
Too
and
fast.
like our body's telling us this is not right.
Yes.
Right. Like the inner voice that says this is not right for me, and this is too fast, or this isn't right yet. So I think, you know, there is that figuring out journey for even if you are a perfectionist or not a perfectionist, like learning what resistance and fear versus like a no in your body really feels like, is an ongoing journey. But I mean, it's helped swinging the pendulum to side for me, and like trying on different things to jump in and try stuff and it be messy and not right. And then, you know, go back to well thought out, planned and prepared, and then try to just kind of keep seeing what happens in the middle, you know?
Yeah.
So creatively, what do you feel like, you know, perfectionism in work is one thing, but like creatively or in, I don't know, home life, or how else can it show up?
Yeah. I think it can show up in both of those things. I would say just with the people I hang around, I would say creative perfectionism is what people would connect with more.
I call it creative constipation.
Yeah. I mean, it's similar to this idea of, I don't want to put something out till it's perfect.
Right.
Which, you know, you're judging perfectionism against probably a standard of someone who's been doing it for 10 years. And if you went and looked back at their first video or their first Instagram post, that shit would be messy and ugly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and you know, there's this Brendan Burchard quote. He said this at an event in 2017, 2018 or something. And it has always stuck with me because it shook me so much in that moment. He said, "You're not afraid to be seen getting started. You're afraid to be seen starting small."
Ooh.
And I think that completely ties with perfectionists, because they're afraid to be seen starting small, which inherently small is usually messy. It's like, one, the audience, but also the, you know, it's not going to be a Mr. Beast YouTube video, you know?
It's so true.
It's going to be like me on my couch, you know, like doing the thing that I said I was going to do. So I think creatively people get super procrastinated, but a lot of the same through lines in terms of priorities. Like you have to know it's hard to procrastinate when you don't have priorities. Yeah. People pleasing. If you are worried about pleasing everyone on the fucking internet, you're never going to put anything out there. Yeah. You know, was there a third through line that I'm forgetting that connects here? I'm sure there is.
I feel like you helped me realize this early on, is like take imperfect action. Like action is the disruptor for perfectionism through and through. Like just do something. Like done is better than perfect. Progress over perfection. Take imperfect action. Like it doesn't matter how you say it, but it's really just about like take the action, take the leap, jump in, do the thing, even if it's small, even if it's messy, even if it's not the perfect embodiment of the vision. Something is better than nothing.
I mean, and there's, just like you're saying, there's like pros and cons to this. Like what you said, there's pros and cons to something. Now I'm forgetting the state, what it was, but I probably say that, and I'm a good embodiment of that because I move really, really fast. But sometimes I move too fast too. So that's what it was. You were saying about your Powerhouse program. Yeah. Is like, I will move so fast that I don't have a chance to question myself. And sometimes it's a good thing. Yeah. To pause and reflect and then set a new action. But to me, it's very much like once you've committed to something and you said you're going to do it, don't give yourself a chance. Like if you move slow enough, if you stall yourself, it's harder to get back into momentum.
Yes.
And so just don't question yourself once you've already made the commitment to doing the thing, whatever the thing is.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I have a particular client is coming to mind where it was a really big insight for him that he is also someone who moves at like 1,000,000 miles a minute and is always doing 700 things at the same time. And we had this kind of pause in our conversation where I was like, you know, if we were to extrapolate like a 1% shift that you make now over the course of the next 5 years, how big a difference that would make in everything that you're up to right now. Like, you can't afford not to pause at this moment, because it was so hard for him to just slow down and choose what the priority was, he was running like 3 or 4 businesses at the same time and just doing all these different things. And I was like, you're not going to find the real true yes of like where you want to go if you're just constantly surrounded by noise and too many competing priorities. We have to have some pause, and like that will disrupt everything that you're used to doing. But if you don't take this 1% shift of like right now assessing what the real direction you want to go, you're going to go another 5 years still like juggling 17 things and not having progressed anywhere near where you want to be. And that's a hard thing to swallow, like for a lot of us, to be like, to slow down and make those choices, and then to get the momentum back up to like do the thing and go after that thing and like really, plant your flag and do the thing in that highest priority.
I've had sometimes good experiences with that though. Like if you take a beat, get some clarity, and you have the focus, for a lot of times that's easier for me to get into momentum because I'm not suffering from like the overwhelm of all these different competing factors.
Yeah.
I think you're bang on. It's like that 1%, 100%. Like that's totally it. I think a lot of times people, especially perfectionists, struggle with the awareness of like when that's required.
Yeah. When to do that is important.
Because if you're a perfectionist, you might be doing it all the
time. Maybe I'm just going to 1% shift like every 5 minutes.
And then you end up rotating in the
chasing
same
your tail.
spot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, you see chasing your tail. You know what I see?
What?
I see on a marching band field to the left flank, to the left flank, to the left flank. Just like, like when you cross the left flank a bunch of times.
Yes. Like, only make left turns.
Yes. But like, like real fast during drill down. My marching band listeners will get that reference. That's literally what I say. I do not see a dog chasing their tail.
Who are you, dog mom?
I know. It's bizarre. Well, my dog doesn't chase her tail.
Fair. Oh, that's good. Well, we're cramming the value in here.
Yeah.
Quick.
So we talked about work professionalism.
Yeah. Creative.
Perfectionism. And creative. Why am I saying procrastination? Perfectionism. Probably because perfectionism caused procrastination. If you were to say there's a third.
For me, it's like home and family. Like, I have, as a perfectionist, I went into motherhood with the like underlying hope that I would be a perfect mom. Honestly, if I'm real honest, I want to be a perfect mom. I don't want to fuck her up. Like I don't want to fuck up and I don't want to fuck her up. But that's not human and that's not real, and I will, and I already have. So like perfectionism and being a human are not like compatible. They don't live in the same room. But so, in terms of coming to awareness about my perfectionism and wanting to avoid the mess of being a human and making mistakes, I will recommend, I've said this before and I'll say it again, the conscious parent. Like that really, to me, it really brings a level of new awareness to just the expectations that we set of ourselves and our spouses for how we parent and how we set the home environment. And I guess just like the person in me, I don't know if this is a mom thing or if this is a woman thing or if this is just like a human thing, whatever. The context is like, I want to do it all and be it all, like in my life. Like I want to be the most amazing coach and the most amazing business owner and the most amazing mother and the most amazing wife, like all of the best, right? And I believe that I can be that, but it doesn't mean I have to do all of it. Like there's like, again, with the right for me versus what's right. If I look at somebody on Instagram and I see them being the most perfect mom in the whole world, according to my made up standards, and then I see, you know, the most perfect business owner, like those are two different people and they're doing totally different things and living totally different lives. And yet in my brain, I expect myself to be both of them.
All of those things.
Yes. And so I think just getting real with myself and like, number one, coming back to my nervous system, like that, like self-regulation work, I get active. Like when I'm activated, that's when my perfectionism is really loud. And so like the way I can combat those irrational thoughts is like regulation and self-care and, you know, my projector rest and like coming back home to myself. And then deciding like, you know, what is the ultimate vision of my life? Like what does being, like what kind of mom do I want to be? What kind of business owner do I want to be? And how do I marry those kinds of things together and then create that vision and move towards that? And, you know, sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes it's 1 step forward, 4 steps back. Like it's not a straight line, but I don't know. That's been kind of my journey into a year of parenting and, you know, marriage and all that kind of stuff. Like that's what helped me.
There was a relationship coach one time I worked with, and he said that he worked with women exclusively. And he said, you know, as a woman, you can have it all, just not all at once. Because if you want to be the best mom version of yourself and embody all of that, then you're not like, it's not likely you're going to also be, you know, the best career version of yourself ever at the same time.
At the same time, right.
Like, can you have both of those things in your life? Can you have all of the things by the end of your life? Yes. And
yeah, that's given me a lot of like relief to remember that, because there are some people that I follow online who like they're just reaching their height of their career. Like they're peaking and, you know, getting famous for things in their 40s and their 50s and they're, you know, like they have teenage children and their career is peaking now. And so to me, like there's some, you know, I guess societal or whatever kind of story of like, you need to kind of have your shit done before you have a kid, you know, like there's like this expectation of like, get your ducks in a row and get your career exploding before they get here, because it's just going to get sidetracked.
Taylor Swift is a unicorn. That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like I would think that most people, that is not the case.
Right.
For most people. And I would even say maybe after Taylor Swift have kids, like there's a whole other Taylor Swift level that we don't even know is coming.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's an important like remembering for me of, and just other perfectionists out there that you can have it all, just not all at once necessarily. And there's probably a reason for the season of like, you know, focusing on one thing. And like we talked about in our previous episode about relationship, like there are different priorities for different seasons, and that's totally okay.
Totally okay. Well,
yeah.
I hope this has been helpful for our perfectionist listener friend.
I hope you take a permission slip for yourself out of this for excusing some of those perfectionist little mongrels in your head that tell you you're not doing enough, because you are.
Yep. And it's not about if it's right, it's about if it's right for you.
Amen.
All
Thanks for taking us to church.
Toodles.